Hello and welcome to Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern. My name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and joining me, as is often the case on a Tuesday at that magic time when the office is open, closed, and the bar's open, would be.
Graybeard Tavern.
How have you been, my friend? It's been a minute.
Ah, you know, uh, I got to play in one of your games since last we talked. So Amazeballs, that's very cool. My so my home game with I have decided to let go of the Grognard tag because it's gaining a lot of negativity,
Mm,
in days and age. And I used it as a poke stick, grumpy old gamers kind of thing. Um, but I'm kind of calling them the old guard now.
the old
Old guard,
guard.
old guard gaming
Old guard
is
gaming.
my in my Discord chat. That's what they're listed. All the stuff we do with just them is old guard gaming, and then all the private channels, just for me and those guys. Um, yeah, I they there must be hundreds of texts today alone because they don't use Discord. They use texts,
Old
and
school.
and it's just they
Now, okay, I
yeah,
gotta
go
interrupt.
ahead.
I gotta interrupt to ask. When they text, do they actually have a keyboard, or do they have to push like the number 2 button twice to get a B, and the 3 button once to get a D? Like, are they really old school texting?
So let me tell you,
Oh
they
God.
they they have kicked, spit, fought, bit, elbowed to not get smartphones. A couple of them, and and so and so yes, it's pretty old school. They're more up to date now. Um, but yeah, they I mean, so many texts today. It's just a beautiful, it's all campaign stuff. So that's a note that you're doing something right. Is they're like all talking about it and coordinating, and there's questions flying, and I'm at work and I'm like, I can't answer your questions because one of them isn't working. One of them is like a freelance guy, and two of them work like second, third shift, like much later shifts. So I'm at work and the questions are flying. And to answer them, I got to like jump out of the firewall and go past the thing and turn off the stuff. And so
A little
it's
hard to do.
really funny. It's really funny. Um, so,
I
oh,
I will
and
take
I'll,
a quick pause to
go
welcome
ahead.
Huzi and Angie and Azteki to our chat today.
Woohoo.
Azteki has discovered the animated emotes as well,
I see that.
and we're having some fun with it. You were about to say something as well.
Well, I'm under the belief that so there's a group chat, and when I'm at my house, I absolutely cannot send texts to them, to the group, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the other four people in the thing, because everyone else I can send texts to, but this one individual,
Hmm.
I think their phone is just, you know, it goes iPhone, ugh, and just will not take my take my texts. So anyway, ah,
That's a bummer. And well, it's interesting too that you bring that up because there was
mm,
just a Twitter thread. It's not Gear Hates Computers.
mm.
There was a Twitter thread that just I saw
Hey.
today because today I had teacher in service, which you know what? I'm in my last semester. I'm going to start putting stuff on the table. Meant I got to play a lot on Twitter.
Yeah,
But it was like, how do you know, what do you want your players to say to you to tell you you've done a good job running the game? And like one of the real popular threads
mm,
was talk about my game after it.
yeah,
Like that knowledge that what you did is living with the players enough that it's filling their headspace to take up their time away from the game table.
right.
So that when you don't have to do like big recaps because they're all like, yeah, this happened and this happened, this happened, and now we need to know what comes next.
Mm,
And that's
mm,
a sign that you've hit something,
right.
which is a lot of fun as a dungeon master to have those.
Yeah. gear there. He's been working on maps for me and stuff, so it's been amazing. Well, I mean, they have really started to get in it, and like, one guy is doing up spreadsheets, and the other guy is like coordinating things and equipment and stuff, and Gear's making maps, and and plans, and so it really, we must be at that, we hit the stride where, okay, everybody feels comfortable, let's get this campaign going. So and also too, I'm running a sandbox because I love me some sandboxes, and so I went, here it is, here's your goals, good luck, what do you do? I don't know, I'm not in charge of this unit, you guys survive. I had to make up like 40 some NPCs because it's a sandbox.
And those are great. We 2 sessions ago with the Convergence, we had a bit of the downside to a roller coaster style game came to a head because we hit a spot where it's like, okay, I can lay down new tracks if you want, but bear in mind you're on a course to go off this track.
Yeah.
And it was really clear and it was really on the nose. And it's probably something we're going to talk about later today. But that's kind of like that downside to the non-sandbox game. Right. You hit those moments. But the thing is, for something like that, I can't prep sandbox. There's just too many choices.
Yeah. And it's all a streaming and not streaming is a different thing too. If you're streaming, you got to keep them on track, and you got to hit story beats and keep moving. In a home game like this, if they want to spend three hours of gaming just chatting it up, that's awesome. They can do that.
The other thing you can get away with a home game is you can do things like say, all right, guys, I was not expecting you to dig up the body of the mayor's wife to start like asking questions and see if there's a secret temple under there. I'm going to need some time. So how about y'all play a quick game of Settlers of Catan while I go in the other room with my notebook?
Yeah.
And you can do that. Or go, I know we said we'd hang out till midnight and it's only 9. I propose we end the night with a game of diplomacy.
Right.
And next week we'll pick up with what happens when you start interrogating the kobold you were supposed to kill.
Yes. If we're still friends, because we're playing diplomacy.
Oh, God. An excellent point. A game I will never... Did I tell you why I will not play diplomacy? Okay. Fun fact. I'm in high school. I don't have my license yet. Buddy picks me up. We all go to one guy's house, and we play diplomacy. On turn 4, I'm out. Like, out.
Yeah.
They all screwed me completely, repeatedly, and I literally had no territory left.
Right.
We are 40 minutes into the evening.
Yeah.
And I say, so what's going on tonight? And I say, well, we're going to play it. And I'm like, but what am I doing?
Right.
And I sat there and watched a game of diplomacy for 3.5 hours because I had no ride home.
Oh.
And I will never play diplomacy again.
Yeah, somebody in that case, it's either, all right, guys, yeah, that kind of sucks. Why don't we call it and start again? Or, hey, do you want to read any of these books, or do you want to, play Atari, or
so can somebody give me a quick ride home? Y'all can take a break. No, man, we're into the game. Like,
yep.
Really, guys? Really?
Yeah.
Really? Although, ironically, I love me a Game of Thrones, the board game.
Right.
Which is diplomacy-esque.
Yeah, we, again, I know we've said this, I've told that story before, but it always, we played it, the 2 times we played it, none of us had read the books, and this was way before the series. And so none of us really understood the Game of Thrones, right? And so we were all like, how about we call a truce here? This river will be the border, and that's cool. Oh, I'm sorry, he's, because the other guys who had read the books and knew what the game was about came out swinging. So then we were all like, hey, that's not cool. Hey, how about we get good? We're allies and we're like got a truce. So how about we beat him up? And it just and and the people who did know were all like, you don't know how to play this. He's gonna win.
And we don't care. It's a fun game. Again, a game full of conflict and conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, go ahead.
I will, since we're gonna head that way, I will tell a story. So we
Please.
used to have we used to run the Gamers Guild at Western Michigan University, and then it became so big that we added another day. We were able to get rooms on Sunday too, so we would do Friday nights and Sunday during the day for war games. We would play the big war games or big board games and stuff, and we played Republic of Rome, which is very much diplomacy. And yes, it's a double dealing, backstabbing, destroy each other thing. And yeah, a friend of mine used to just grit his teeth because, alliances would form and then he would be like, no, that's not how you play this. You have to make deals and they have to change alliances all the time. And there was one guy who was just like, I assassinate him. Like every round he would take all his money from his properties and territories and hire assassins to kill people like every turn of the game and stuff. And just, anyway.
It's an interesting strategy.
Resolution.
Interesting strategy. And if the game is well designed, it will be almost effective.
Right.
It can't be really effective because that sounds a little too like, well, if everyone just hires assassins, but it should have some value to it.
It did. He had to have other people protecting him from other things. And then he would be the assassin guy because when you're caught in that game, when you're caught doing the assassinations, you basically like lose almost everything. Your house is disgraced and you lose a bunch of stuff, and then you have to be another person from the house. And so you might get new stats and new things and be a different person. But he was just like, I'm the house of assassins, the house of 1,000 assassins.
This is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I assassinate people.
Yeah.
Interesting. That does sound like a potentially high stress kind of thing. So, well, with the conflict resolution side of things, it kind of actually bridges a little bit. It's come up in a couple of different places over the last week and a half. Part of it was what happened the day after our last get together, because that was when I had a game of the Convergence. And I said it when we started, what it kind of like, a little bit of backstory here. The story's been, I have this general story arc. There are 3 major bullet points they're supposed to get through. And they were finally getting to bullet point 1. And the original plan, that's not really relevant. They had to interact with this NPC. And I, as a DM, had bumped into a little bit of a plot hole because I wasn't sure why this NPC was going to tell them how to save the world. Like, he has this knowledge, he can save the world. And he's been working on it in solitude in the back of this old abandoned movie complex for many years.
Very cool.
He's fully worked it out. Hype Goblin, welcome. One awesome human and one perfectly average one. I'm a big fan of undersell, over deliver. So I always, awesome, average. At least I think so. But I filled the plot hole by thinking, well, I'll just have him insist that the PCs think of him like be his minions. Like as long as they're like, fine, we're your minions. What do we do to save the world? He'll go, here's how you save the world.
Right.
And what ended up happening, they got in, he goes, oh, I have minions. You can help me save the world now. And they all went, excuse me, baking soda? And it spiraled. And it was one where it's like part of my frustration as a DM was tied to, but you guys, you don't have other options. And they kept going, well, we have other options. I kept thinking, not really. We'll go to the Imperial City. And my brain goes, you mean the place where you're wanted?
Right.
We'll go to the university. The place in the Imperial City?
Where you're wanted?
I'm smart. I'll figure it out. He's been working on it for 4 years, and he's not an adventurer. He's not distracted by keeping his intestines inside his body.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, get in a lot of combat, and you get concussions. Are you sure? And we had to do a timeout.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite at the level where they called it. I was the one who called the timeout. I pulled out the red card. But it was one where when we play, I keep the Zoom chat open. And that is the understood, if we start to go somewhere, any color to me as a Zoom message is the, whoa, we're somewhere I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then we sat down, we stopped talking in character, we stopped role playing, we said, all right, what does everyone want out of this moment? What's everyone's vision for the story at this stage? What's everyone's hope for the campaign? What do we want to do here?
Yeah. I like the way you asked that too. That's pretty good. Okay, what are your expectations? Because obviously we are miscommunicating and it's okay to time out, 15-yard penalty. Let's just back this up,
Yeah, and that's one of those where it came down to, and I've said this with my students a lot as a teacher, what's everyone expect? Because misaligned expectations cause 90% of conflicts.
Exactly.
You say you're going steady. She expects you to stop Snapchatting with other girls. You expect to be able to keep doing that. You have misaligned expectations. You now have conflict.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing where that we got that down. And they said, we don't want you to have to rewrite everything. I'm like, I don't mind.
Right.
Don't adapt what you do in the story element because you're afraid I'm going to have to do Dungeon Master work. Yeah. I signed up for Dungeon Master work. It's why it says, Dungeon Master under my name in the overlay. I knew what I got into. I'd rather not do that for a variety of reasons, but if you want to go a different route, we can go a different route, but let's kind of recap some backstory, take a moment to breathe. And I even had thought in the moment about stopping, turning the stream off.
Yeah.
And actually taking us out of the stream and doing this in private. And the big reason I didn't was I was feeling really cocky. I was.
All right.
You're like, what, cocky? Because I was really confident the 5 of us could resolve it peacefully out of character.
Yeah.
Without having to do the, without going into places that would have been uncomfortable to share with people.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, it's not like one player would break down because that's how my mother died. That kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So okay.
Gotcha. And we did review the safety things. And I said when we started the stop, I said, we can go offline, but I kind of want to let's just do this here. And after the fact, we talked about the modeling that moment at the table of hey, we need to breathe.
Yeah.
Are we all good here?
Yeah.
Are we all still friends?
Right.
Are we walking away from the table as friends? And it was a really neat experience. And it was a really intense session with a lot of good stuff that happened both before and after. I learned a lot. I'll say that too.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I guess it never...
About people, about gaming, about the situation.
I don't want to overplay it, but there were 2 things that I saw happening early on in exchange. I don't know if this is so much conflict resolution as potential conflict warning.
Okay.
I presented to 4 players, one individual who said, I am smarter than all of you, so you need to listen to me, and you will not figure it out as fast as I have.
Yeah.
And they all had experiences with people telling them they couldn't do something and being dismissive of them. And that struck a nerve.
Gotcha.
I don't think gender was not a factor. But again, all 4 of them did say, well, it's not, it wasn't a woman thing. I said, oh, my experience talking to women is that it often is, but okay, fair. But I also know on the flip side of that, presenting an NPC who said, I have been studying something extensively. I am very smart about this. And having the players go, we can figure it out on our own faster than you did.
Yeah.
Struck a nerve with me. Because the thing about being a gray bearded educator is there's a lot of things I've tried and done, and I know why they don't work, and it's really frustrating to have the new guys come in and go, well, you just haven't tried this yet. You don't know what you're doing. I have my degree, don't you know? I know how this works. And it was weird that from both sides of that exchange, we were both triggered.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I come from the school of hard knocks, so I've got the scars to prove a lot of things that I've had to learn over the years. Always, yeah, that's really again, it's a good example to talk about, and I think that in a way, you both went, whoa, let's revisit this, and I think too, it wouldn't have been, because I've done this a lot of times in role playing, particularly when I'm the DM. I'm like, this is not me. This is the character. I love you guys. Thanks for playing in my game and all that. But this is the BBEG. He's the big bad evil guy. He's evil, and he's going to be mean and nasty and horrible. And if it's triggering, let's revisit it. But this is me acting as that character, so now if we have to look at something differently or play it different, that's great. Particularly I run a horror game, so a lot of times I will beforehand, I will say to someone or something, hey, instead of saying what exactly I have planned, which again, in a horror movie, the anticipation sometimes is way out there, I will say, are you okay with, body transformation? And then they'll go, oh, am I? Oh God. Yeah, let's try it, and then they wait for it, and they, they're waiting to see what happens, and then I'm like, you're a possum, and this and that, and they're like, a possum, what the hell? And you go from there.
It's interesting too. Speaking of being in front of these conflicts, there's a lot of conversation about session 0. Brain fart. Session zero safety talks. And one thing that I'm going to be a little weird. I'm not a really big fan of checklists when there are new players.
Yeah.
Like, I can respect if you've got a bunch of veterans, your old guard, and you sit down and say, look, here are all the things that can happen in a game. Let's mark these as cool. I guess if it has to, please don't. And dear God, if you do that, I'm leaving the table. That's a good tool. By the way, you always want to take a Lantern Noir Presents survey. They're very well written. But I can also imagine handing that list to a total new player.
Yeah.
And saying, here, like, I have to wonder how many people who are coming into the D&D space for the first time would look at that list and go, wait. Why are you asking me my opinion on having someone's eyeballs crushed? Like, is that a thing that happens? And you could go, no, it's not a thing that has to happen. But it's on the checklist. If it's not a thing that happens, why is it on the checklist?
Yes.
You put it on the checklist. And you go, well, I didn't make the checklist. Well, you printed it. And I want to try to, like, get those people in before we scare them with the crushing eyeballs.
Yeah. The good thing to do is go, these are the standards, unacceptable, blah, right at the top. And then put in the variables could happen. That way they have an idea that these are off the table and never going to be on the table ever. And in any role-playing game that you walk into where those are on the table, feel free to say no. Gotta go, ain't happening. Yeah, and to be the old man, I'll say we didn't have that. 35 years ago or more when I started DMing. And as I look back, I'm like, wow, yeah, because that for me as a dungeon master, that was part of the fun, part of the exploration, is to give these horrible moral choices. Do you want the magic sword or save the puppy? Super magic sword, save puppy, can only do one. And that, like, not puppy exactly, but you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And then that, and I never thought of it as, oh, this could be triggering, this could be something somebody doesn't like. And yeah, looking back now, yeah, I mean, whew, that just would be not acceptable. There's no way I would run something like that without talking to people first.
Well, it's interesting.
know
Unstable Deus mentioned in chat that political games have a higher risk of triggering players, partially through the dirty play side of things. Especially when you get into, and this is another thing to talk about, is the role of player versus player conflict, and player versus environment conflict, and character versus character conflict.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are layers of conflict. There are things like the characters can get into a thing, but then the players can get into a thing on top of that. So storyteller for Vampire the Masquerade, there's a whole host of terrible actions, arguably worse than that. Referring to the previous thing that, I would, is it okay to, we're not touching that one, Chief. Gear, I love you, man. We're not touching that one. But yeah, Vampire is especially known for being the kind of game that you have to be very careful introducing new players to. And welcome, NV Courier. We're glad to have you hanging out with us on the podcast. Because it's a game of horror. It's a game of pushing those envelopes, which it's weird. I can think of situations where, at least for me, I was comfortable with some pretty horrific storytelling happening. But when somebody says, oh yeah, we got your character killed.
Right.
I'm like, we're time. The Mrs. Noir and I met playing live action Vampire.
Right.
I had left the game. I didn't have time to go anymore. She had continued playing, and there was the entire game was converted into Sabbat.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was not a game I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And for me, being like roped into that moment of, well, now you have to be, because that's the way this game is set up, would have been like and out. Because that would have been something that I was not up for. But I can also see that creating lots of conflicts on the way that require those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, and two, it can be, again, character conflict can be absolutely amazing. Dr. Gear ran an adventure that was me and Muddy. We were the only two players, and we had opposing goals. And we twisted, and the things were going, and we would start laughing because it would get so crazy and so tense as our machinations were building, that we would just start laughing because we're like, oh my God, why are we going here? This is so horrible. And so if you are characters and you're playing the characters, that's fine. Where the conflict and resolution sometimes needs to be is when it's player hating player. Because in college, again, 30 years ago, we didn't know and we didn't understand this. And so, I mean, in one campaign, I had like 7 to 9 players, and one of the players was actively hiring assassins to kill another player because they didn't like the person, not the player. But at the time, didn't think about it. 9 players, got a story to tell. Whatever, sure. Mark the gold out. I got stats for an assassin here. When it comes up, we'll put it in. And
it's
just
in the queue.
Didn't even think about it. Where now I would go, okay, cool. And I would take the other person aside and I'd be like, okay, someone's trying to assassinate you. Is this cool? And then, kind of go with it. And then I would make sure it's not a player hating player thing, but a character, and the character story arc has a reason to want to assassinate them and whatnot. Another one for conflict was the like 19 people game I ran that was like Game of Thrones back in 1990, where I had 3 teams of like 8 people, and they all were, it was all about political machinations and assassination attempts, and they were like these noble gangs trying to wipe each other out to take control of the kingdom. And I ran that for like 3 months, and then there it was accepted. It was more like a board game, and we're competing, and if you die, you make a new character, you're in next week, no biggie, don't worry too much about it. So if you set the expectations up front, then you won't have, like we were saying, you won't have those conflicts. But to broadside someone, with a dump truck full of, other player hate, I can't imagine it.
Part of why we were hashing out on Twitter today. I'm at Lantern Noir and at Graybeard Tavern. And I think we need to make that a habit. So we just need to like tweet at each other on Monday night, Tuesday morning, and say what's our topic, and we can do it out there in the open. And if people that are following us want to chime in, you're welcome to. Because we, as Graybeard joked, this was one of the first times we had a topic more than 15 minutes before we sat down. We're getting old, and we're now well into the we've heard this story before phase. So advanced plans for you kids. We don't have that kind of time left on this earth to sit around and plan. That's time we can do something else. My grandfather, love him to death, but he never bought green bananas. He always swore that was just too much optimism at his age.
I love that. I so love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we're going through. How about these? Oh, they're too green. I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, topic was. That's also possible. That this is the first time we remembered the topic was okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. We said that. What did we say the topic was going to be? I don't know. What did you say it was going to be?
We don't know. We got to go back to the drawing board or something. Maybe did we write it down?
I think it's on the Twitters. That's how you know you're old too. It's the whatever the site is with an S attached. The Facebooks. But part of what got me thinking in this line, I was watching a conversation on the D&D Beyond forums, and they were talking about what to do about the fact that the players were getting into a conflict. And Deos has brought up the player versus player is not good. PC versus PC is good. And I support that. And what would have happened is several of the conversations down. Well, the first thing that popped up was people are coming now to the argument with, I've got backup characters ready to roll. And to me, that's a sign that the characters are in a conflict and the players are starting to say, I have backup characters. I don't think the DM can stop that fight, that actual we are rolling initiative. I don't think the DM can stop that fight from happening now.
Yep.
I feel like, go ahead.
I used to do the 40 by 40 room when people were being chuckleheads. The gods would go fight it out, because it was a bunch of college guys, and and occasionally 1 or 2 girls, women, and so I would put a 40 by 40 room down and be like, okay, you guys duke it out for a while. When the dust settles, then I'll come back to DMing. But because we were all crammed in an apartment, there was like I said, 7 to 9 of us, and any day, all of a sudden, somebody's giving someone a monkey bump, or ow, it hurts, don't it? And those kind of things. And so, so people conflicts, not even necessarily involved in the game.
Well, and what's interesting, I was reading those responses. Somebody said, well, if they're adults, they're going to know to keep things in character. And I had this thought about the fact that there are conflicts that, especially in modern gaming, that go above and beyond the characters, where things like, how are you even thinking about that, becomes now a player player conflict.
Right.
You know, I know you said you're playing an evil wizard, but I'm sorry, you're doing what to her?
Right.
And it kind of hit me.
How did that machination even come into your head? Because you only think about the advancement of your spells or whatever. you know uh, you really would you really would waste your time, your precious study time, to take it out on this other individual. They're beneath you, right?
Yeah, Shadow comes. I have a backup character is shorthand for I'm not really invested. Like, okay, that's fair. It's not quite the level of hide behind the pile of dead bards yet.
Right.
But that's its own story. And if you've never seen The Gamers 2, an independent film about playing Dungeons and Dragons, that's your homework tonight. That's definitely a wonderful bit of old school quasi third edition D&D spoofdom.
Yep.
And 3 is a good follow up where they go after the collectible card industry.
Exactly.
Excuse me, but it did get me into that, like thinking more and more about conflicts that are inherently going to become player conflicts because we've created situations where people are saying, yeah, I'm okay with my character doing this kind of thing, and that's just the way that it's going to roll. We have to be okay with me having conceived this as a plan.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes there's room to kind of stop and go, okay, it's okay for this to be an out of character conflict because this is deeply uncomfortable to the people at the table.
Yeah.
Which then loops back to what we talked about at the beginning about those safety tools, where you can say, okay, red card. I'm not comfortable with your character doing that to this person. Not my character's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Me, Lantern, the DM, is not really on board with what you're suggesting now. Like, I have can we dissect where you're coming from for this?
Yeah.
Where are you at with that kind of thing? Is that something that you've seen happen, or can you foresee it happening?
Well, yeah. So I have played in a lot of groups, and sometimes there is dynamics going on that you do not understand. And again, this is all 15, 20 years at least ago. But the DM likes this person. Oh, that's what's going on here. So either I have to now go, got it, I understand that player dynamic, and I'm along for the ride. This is now the beloved individual show, and we are now supporting characters to that individual and whatnot. Or a DM who really doesn't like someone at the table and hates the person because the group formed out of mutual friends. Well, this guy doesn't like this guy, and hence the DM is going to make it painful for the other person and try to drive them from the game, rather than being an adult and going, hey, it's not working out. I don't think you're fitting in, or, I can't DM for you. How about we split ways, or you go join a different party or something. Sometimes you got to fire your players or your DM.
or acknowledge that the value of the gathering of people is greater than the story arc you're trying to sell.
Yeah,
I can think of some, like, I would love to do different kinds of stories with different friends, but I know those friends enough to know that we just can't go down certain roads together because it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And as much as we would like to say, well, I'm not going to insert my personal politics into a D&D game, that's another one of those, like, I'm not trying to force a conflict, But I also don't think things like trans people are people is a political view that I'm pushing. It's an act of reality.
Yeah.
We just kind of got to do what we got to do, and we have to make sure that you're aware that's that's a conflict we're going to have that I'm not going to compromise on.
Right. That should have been in that session 0 top part. Transphobia not accepted here.
Yeah.
You out. You
Yep.
know.
Let's see here. So we have some interesting points from chat
Sure.
to mention in here. Stable Duos sent me the link and I reposted it for the TTRPG safety toolkit, which, if I remember right, that includes the checklist, and I also believe it has with it the cards for the table, where you can just put your finger on something. And
Depending on what kit it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to even say, I'm going to be, I'm calling the red card. You can just go, hey, my hand's here. Hopefully you notice it before things get really worse.
Yep.
And that's a really useful tool to come back to. And then we also have the comment from Angie, which I think is a good one, which is player conflict arising out of the I'm too nice to wave the red card. And that's one of those where I've seen that abused in other circles, or at least I haven't seen it. I've heard of it being abused from people that I believe were adequately relating the story. So I wasn't there to see it, but I trust the storytellers, and they were usually in the form of a weak person will tell me I need to stop doing this. And so you never tell me to stop because you're too strong for that. And imposing on someone the idea that you don't call for a pause to play because you're too something for that, which completely defeats the purpose of having the pause button.
Right.
The pause button is for safety purposes. And if you're in a position where you're like, well, I don't want to be the one to say red to what you said because I really want to stay at this table. I don't want people to think I'm someone always calling red. I mean, and the truth is there are tables where if one player keeps saying, hang on, guys, I'm not cool with that. Hang on, guys, I'm not cool with that. There might be a breakup of that table.
Yeah.
But that's not always a bad thing either, because if the other players aren't going, hey, we have 4 times tried to assault the barmaid, and all 4 times this guy over here keeps saying they're not cool with it, I kind of feel like you're okay being the one to go, I'm okay with them kicking me out over this.
Right. Or maybe I should just freaking leave.
Yeah.
This is not my jam, and I'm not here for this.
Yeah. But it's sad that's a thing, because the whole point of the safety tools is to have a way to communicate. This is not something, this is causing memories or experiences that are just deeply upsetting. Yeah. And they're trying to minimize the later conflicts. The conflicts where, and it happened in the other space where it's like those relationships deteriorated and left people very hurt because someone had said, well, you shouldn't. A stronger person in this relationship wouldn't wave the red card now. Well, at the end of the day, the relationship still completely tanked and people really got hurt. I kind of see the same thing here with this kind of conflict at the table. And it goes back to where I started with my story with the women in my convergence group. Yeah. I think if I hadn't called a stop, no matter what came out of that, we were going to be in a worse place than we were when I did.
Yeah.
And the better move was to call the stop early rather than look back 3 sessions later and go, okay, well, now that your characters are beaten and bruised, now that you really feel hemmed in by the plot, now that, our last session was, how many waves of gnolls can you survive? Clearly no one's having fun. What do we do to fix it?
Yeah.
And that's not the goal. The goal is to get in front of these things, to keep the conflict to interesting character drama, not player drama.
Yes. Yeah. Always. Yeah. It should always be about the characters, never about the individuals around the table. So, Yeah, and I guess too that kind of leads us into like a convention mindset too, because when you're running at a convention, you have no idea what's at your table, who they are, or what's going on, and you, you know, you need to be willing to stop on a dime and and like you said, lay new track. You're like, oh, whoa, okay, this is Curse of Strahd, and this person's afraid of blood or afraid of vampires or whatever, and you're like, oh,
This is going
okay,
to be
well,
hard.
yeah, but I need to get through a 3 hour session here. So you're either going to take that person aside and talk to them, or it's talk to everyone else at the table.
We have a
And
3 hour session schedule. How about we take a 15er to go get our food for the next 2.5 of the session? Can I talk to you for a second?
yeah,
And not because it's a bad thing. Like, just a
right.
legit, like, hey, there were some things in the book you might not have, in the guidebook about this that we're reading. I'm happy to give you your ticket back.
Yep.
Are you sure this is the table you want to be at? If it's in
Yeah.
things that fit within the realm of generally acceptable of the game.
Yeah.
And things that are on the flip side, I don't think a player is wrong to go, I'm sorry, I think I need my ticket back. This
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in the book when I signed up for this adventure.
Or even oh, they said there's an empty spot here. I didn't even look at the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had no idea what I was signing up for. I just needed a game, and they pushed me here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
biggest player conflict out of that is to have somebody say, "Oh, you're a bad person for not wanting to engage in this kind of story arc." Like, unless we're talking something that's really, really like out there, it's like it's okay. Like, some people that's just not a story arc they want to get into. You don't want to deal with a campaign where there's acceptable slavery. I'm not gonna begrudge you that. You're free to say that's not my jam. I don't want to be part of that. And there is a room for us when we have really run out of topics
Mm.
to say, let's talk about all the kinds of things that we can sneak into a game that are going to make people uncomfortable, but we could probably make work. You're like, no.
I know. You see, the grist mill of my own mind was like, I don't know.
No.
They probably don't want to. No, I'll do.
Well, I mean,
I'd have to work on that
yeah,
one.
there are things that are, but it's like it's a matter of using these tools to get in front of conflicts before they escalate.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest one, because once they've started, it's hard to come back.
Yep. There's certain people on Twitter I follow just because they are, pushing that what some might call the woke boundary of gaming, and so yeah, so a lot of times they have such horrible conflicts, and people will say the most horrible things to them, and they are like, no, you're not understanding. You're being horrible to me, and I'm just trying to say these are my boundaries. You don't have to have my boundaries. This is mine, and I don't want to punch you in the nose, so please don't punch me in the nose. We can get along and stuff. We just have to understand that these are the things that aren't acceptable to me, and I'm not going to go there. And my not wanting to go there should in no way impede your fun. You go there, just not with me. If you want to paint all your little guys as Nazis, that's great. I know this isn't World War II. This is, a My Little Pony game. But if you want to put swastikas on your My Little Ponies, great. You just do that with somebody else.
Yeah, I think you should be a different table, and I think that's where it's interesting from a cultural point of view. The things that we're able to go, yeah, I could see that as something that could happen at the game table, and I'd be uncomfortable seeing that in the hobby. Deus brings up a concept for a character that comes from a society that practices infanticide and eugenics. That's pretty hardcore. happened historically.
And then the thing to go with that is that if you're the one pushing those things, that might be hard to sell. And again, talk about it in the session zero. If you're the character who is, got the horrible dark backstory, and it's your tragic, epic backstory, I think that's a much easier sell, and people would be like, "Ooh, I can play with that,"
Requires the players knowing each other very well. Yes, absolutely, I agree with that. That was actually White Wolf had that in the Werewolf the Apocalypse. The Black Fury tribe would drown all male cubs born into it.
Whoa!
That was how there were only women as Black Furies. They did, yeah. That was fair, and I managed to convince a storyteller to let me play a male Black Fury who was the Metis, the called the mule. So they had deformities and they couldn't bear offspring, and so it became one of those. This one was spared, and there were other story arcs to that, and a little bit of like what I thought had happened in the background, and what the storyteller had really planned for what had happened, since I wasn't there to see it. Sometimes the males went to the children of Gaia. That also did happen, but it strikes me as, and I'm trying to imagine the conversation over on the forum that sparked my brain as this could be a fun one to talk about, which is a really heavy. We should have had a trigger warning at the beginning of this thing. Note to self: record trigger warning for this episode, which I have not done yet. I'll have to remember to do that when I master it. Where's I going with this? Oh, the kinds of things where the conversation can move from, Deus, we really owe you for this, character to character drama into player to player drama. That's a legitimate drama. So like, we're talking about our characters. Deus's character says, well, in my culture, this is what's normal. We need to acknowledge every culture has its rights to its things. The paladin says, no, we must go crush your culture. Your culture is evil. We now have some neat conflict. Like, well, maybe you can travel with us, but if we ever go to your homeland, I will have to slaughter everybody. So don't bring me home for dinner. And then the player goes, I don't see why the paladin's making such a big deal about this. I mean, who really wants to let a bunch of people with inferior genetics survive? We're doing them a favor. And y'all kind of stop and look around the table and go, okay. Anybody want to order pizza? And
like I said, if you again, you knew each other really well, and you knew that it was just a backstory for a character that then was going to lead into something else in a design, then, and it's all agreed upon, that's fine. You do you don't yuck other people's yums, but at the same time, if it's not acceptable at the table, don't bring it to the table.
We should definitely yuck on things that are, though, generally considered like yuck.
Yeah, again, should have been in the Star Wars crawl preamble to the session zero. These are things that I'm not having at my table.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that does happen. Yeah, that would be very awkward. But I keep picturing when someone said, good players will never let in-character drama become player conflict. My brain jumped to I can think of some cases, and there are cases I found myself in as a player. And that's a player of privilege, where I've gone, this is not cricket. This is not something we like. You entertaining this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
We have a problem. Well, it's just a character. Well, is it though? And that's where it's like, I kind of like, it's been in my brain all day of like, I kind of want to, like, this is why I could talk about this.
Yeah. So we used to have a guy at our table who would punish his dice by throwing them at the wall. And again, this was like 1990, and there were no safety tools or whatever. And then it would be like, could you please not do that? I live here. Said and done, and then it was the option of, okay, I can leave the table because obviously he lives here. I do not. I'm so there was a lot of things, or like one guy we used to have he was always playing with a knife at the table, and we're just like, somebody's going to lose an eye eventually. Could you not do that here?
The ritual punishing of the die. Everyone, safety glasses on.
Yeah, exactly. Face shields, a riot shield.
That could be a really fun thing to bring into the table.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Or even things like, given how cheap dice are these days, in many cases, this die is going to die death row. And at the end of the session, we go out in the garage and we put it up on the anvil and we crush it because it's done.
So I will digress to a Magic the Gathering story.
Go for it.
At Magic the Gathering got really bloated really quickly, and so we started playing with a grill. We had a grill at the end of the table, and when something went into the graveyard, you just threw the card into the grill, and it just burned away. Now, in retrospect, thousands and thousands of dollars of Magic cards had been burned away because of our angst.
You had no idea. You had no idea.
We had no idea.
None
Such contempt.
at all. Diaz also brings up the idea too that having one player at the table who doesn't like graphic descriptions of violence, and other characters who are masters of combat, so you just have to kind of find that sweet spot where everybody's having a good time, which is usually the ultimate goal with these things.
Yep.
To try to find that sweet spot where everyone's still having a good time and being respectful of all players at the table.
Yep.
Kind of like what my capstone thought on this is, somebody posted on Twitter earlier today, I think it was Dice Drop, the idea that you don't get to go to somebody else's table and tell them how to play. And I said, but I'll die. I added in, said, I'll die on the hill, though, of your table should be safe and inclusive. And if it's not, you're doing it wrong. And I will die on that hill of like treating people as human beings at your game table should not be imposing my will on you. And if it is, I'm going to impose.
Yeah. I cannot tell you. There was a certain individual back in the day who was like, I'm not kidding. He invited me to the table, and then it was one of those things where afterwards he's like, I can't believe you're dishonoring me with your attitude and your play style, blah blah blah. Just wait. Time. I'm just honoring you. Yeah, and the table, you're bringing all this disrespect. And I'm like, yep, I don't need to be here because you've got some kind of little cult thing going on, and I'm not going to be part of it.
What, do you have any concept what disrespect you brought?
I have a tendency to be a pretty, outspoken, or can be a flamboyant character and stuff. And I think it was one of those things where I did what my character would do, and it did not live up to what his story had in where his story was going and what it was doing. And I'm like, well, yeah, you said I could bring my halfling fighter thief who worships the god of chaos. It doesn't know he's actually a worshiper of Zagig, and he gets thrown campaign to campaign, and that's why I play this one character, but I've played him in like 8 campaigns. You said I could bring him to the table. What did you expect? Yes, I see my lord. He draws his short sword and takes a knee.
And we're back to the most conflict comes from misaligned expectations.
Exactly.
What were you expecting again? So what's been coming up? What's been happening in the last week, or what's coming up that has you excited for Dungeons and Dragons or other games? You wanted to talk some news.
Yeah, yeah.
We
You want to go
buried
there?
that. Yeah, go there.
You're gonna go there?
Go there.
All right. So I find it utterly amazing that a group of D&D players, they have a cartoon coming out this week about their D&D campaign. That as 8-year-old me, that would be the utter amazing dream. That would have been I my that would be a life goal, and I would be like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. How can I do anything more than this? That my D&D character, my D&D game, has been made into an animated series, like professionally, and it's on a paid streaming.
Can we take it up a step higher than that even?
Sure.
I linked it in chat. NPR has
Yeah.
reviewed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this isn't just like it's on a platform. It has
Mm-hmm.
national media coverage and
Mm-hmm.
reviews.
Right.
And good review. Like the review was
Yeah.
very kind.
Mm-hmm.
Which NPR, the guy who does these, if it's who I think it is, let me check what the byline is. It's
Yeah.
not always Glenn Weldon. If I remember right, he's been pretty harsh on a few other things. So I mean, he's not a rubber stamper.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, Legend of Vox Machina is the Critical Role animated series. It comes out. Everything I've seen on it looks really good. I'm waiting for it. It's on Friday, and we'll see how it goes. And maybe next time I'll even give some of my opinions on. However, I cannot remember if they're releasing it all at once so people can binge, or if they're doing week after week.
Now, what platform is it streaming on?
It's no,
Amazon Prime?
I think it's Prime. I'm pretty sure it's
Okay,
Prime.
then I can get to it. Because we have limited streaming services in the house. We had to cap ourselves at the big ones.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any of Picard because
Yeah.
we just can't afford to pick up the service
Dude,
to get it.
Exactly. That's I am not. It's I have loved me some Trek in the day, but
Oh, yeah.
I can't shell out just for some Star Trek. So
Yep, I feels that. One thing that's kind of fun for me with my gaming lately that I do want to comment on, and I'm actually going to repeat the alert because it's crazy to me that this is a thing. But I have taken the artwork from the Convergence and from Dragon Heist, and I have put them up on the merch store.
yeah,
And I'm not working that hard, but they're selling.
nice.
And it's a little bit weird to think that like people are buying it.
Yep.
It's really exciting. The one I'm the most proud of is I do have a tank top that I have two of them. One with Raylona from our Dragon Heist game, and one with Aveline from the Convergence that says I work out so I can do all the things my Dungeons and Dragons character can do.
What's really great, what I love about that is when I played Dragon Heist, I created a character, Kronk Gorblast, and a Goliath Gladiator, and because of Kronk, it's exactly what I did. I started working out. I lost 70 pounds, and in a year because of my character, and I'm like, yeah. So what happened was 3-hour session. I'm talking like that, and the next day my guts hurt, my diaphragm hurt, and I'm like, I am so out of shape. I can't even play someone who's strong. And so so I started working out then. So yes, it's a very true statement.
Awesome.
Definitely, it's always amazing to have merch of your characters and stuff, and it's so it's so viable nowadays. Why the hell not?
Yeah, it's been a real wacky trip. I'm waiting on a shipment. I accidentally ordered the wrong size of stickers for sticker giveaways. I end up with little ones. And I'm like, no, I have to reorder these. So now when I do sticker giveaways, you either get a sticker or you get a 3-pack of mini stickers.
Cool.
Because I obviously I can't. I'm not going to throw them out, but
I was also very proud to have made the cut. Clarkton is there.
Oh yeah,
He's,
yeah. We have the whole. The
he's-
hope is, and
yeah,
I've been talking to Liz because she's the big wild card for the last session.
yeah.
Is like I am planning to get everybody into the last session, so it
Right,
will be
right.
one big epic finale, of which
Yeah.
what you do with it, I'm not entirely sure. There's a big turn point in that last session. You're either going to do this or do that. You get to pick one, but that's it. Because running combat with 7 players is going to be a trip and a half to try to balance. But it'll be fun. Whatever you do will be epic and fun and crazy and end in great hijinks.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that. Tomorrow night we're continuing with the Convergence, where I have a dragon on that has attacked them from behind a pile of rusted out cars and container trucks.
Yeah.
And we left off with the dragon on an freeway overpass sign, trying to eat the ranger who had climbed up it for a better shot. And that's on my list of things, like just the visual. I'm like, this feels so like what I wanted out of this game.
Right.
I wanted it to have these crazy fantasy, apocalyptic, postmodern moments.
Right.
So I'm really geeked for that too.
That's fantastic. Such a good disjointed imagery too. Like you said, this overpass and the sign and the ranger. Very cool. Very cool.
Do you have more games coming up? Because I could gush a pinch more before we start to wind down.
Yeah, obviously my sandbox on Saturday night is fantastic. I did play Cthulhu this past week with the UK crew. Again, they have a sound deck, and the music plays, and we went to a hospital, and then we went to investigate at a professor's office, and there was this Persian music playing in the background because there's this archaeologist expert and stuff. So yeah, it's a gorgeous, beautiful game. They're so fun to play with. And then I got Wilder Myth on Sunday mornings, so you never be afraid to come check us out there. We're winding down. I think we've got one more chapter to the story we're in, so it'll be a bunch of new characters. If you want to make a character and run through the stuff with me on Sunday mornings, a couple weeks we'll have a chance to have some new peeps in. So feel free to join us 10 a.m. ish.
Did
Eastern
Lantern get
Standard
retired?
Time. Lantern, yes, chaptered out. They retired, and somewhere I've got a shot that I have to send you. It's a picture, so I'll try to find that screenshot and send it along. So
cool.
And you haven't come up in Legacy yet either, so we'll see how that works out. It's really weird that when they offer you Legacy characters, they just like grab a couple, and they're like, you can have this one or this one for this story, and so I love that game though. Wilder Myth, check it out.
It is. I wish I had more time to give it time, because it does look fascinating. But unfortunately, whenever I get the turn-based strategy vibe, I go straight back to XCOM. Someone said that it looks like we're going to get a Star Wars turn-based strategy game in the coming years, and I'm like, I would go full-time streamer with XCOM Star Wars Edition. Like, I don't care if it's financially viable. I would just stream that thing 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Wookiee brawler, here I come.
Oh yeah, abso-stinkin'-lutely. But I am geeked for Dragon Heist. We're going to do that again on Wednesday. You're on standby this week, if I remember right.
Yep.
But we actually have the full original cast. We'll be there for that game,
nice.
which is neat to get them all back together for the first time in a few weeks. And then I'm currently casting for 2 more games.
Oh, nice. Like long haul or
long haul. So Dragon Heist is wrapping up at the end of February. And I would like mid-March to start Ravenloft 1918.
That's right. That's
on
right.
my
You're
radar.
you're flipping the script a little bit on that one.
Yep,
Yeah.
we've got one player confirmed. I'm not saying who yet.
Mm.
We are still sticking with 5th edition D&D. Even though I know for a fact I'm pushing a hexagonal peg into a round hole. And I know people are already like, you're running a modern game with 5th edition. Like, that is not the right, that is not, that's a hexagonal peg in a round hole, man. I know this. But there are so many good tools for both streaming it and for playing it at distance. I just don't want to muck around with other stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to rewrite all the encounters from the adventure, because they're good encounters and they're fun. I'd rather just say, oh, you're a ranger? Cool. Here's your bow. It looks like a long rifle. There we go. Now we can still role play it. It's just that the dice don't change any. The game balance doesn't change any. The characters will still have their motivations. Is this really quick, sweetie? I'll be up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, just put a new skin on whatever it is. Let's go.
Yeah, that's my plan for that. I think the convergence, we just finished episode 9. I said it would go between 10 and 15. We're probably going to go 15 to 20. So
wow.
I've got a couple of weeks for that before I have to worry about it. But I'm starting to muse on the idea of a Saturday morning cartoons. So it'll probably be D&D. Something I don't have to. Savage Worlds was pretty good at having some good mashups. I remember we've had talks about Savage Worlds before. I don't want to do heavy prep, but I realized I'm streaming every Saturday morning. Yeah. I'd be comfortable DMing if it's something published that we could just sit down. I just have to tweak it and we can play it. I'm totally digging that as something that I might do if there's interest. Now I know 8 a.m. Saturdays is not everybody's jam.
Right.
But I also
can I suggest Witchlight? I say that because there is some definitely cartoony bits, and there's an homage to the D&D Saturday morning cartoon in it. Yeah. I don't want to give any spoilers, but yeah. So
I'll have to explore that. I was leaning towards the Lost City, which was one of the first adventures I ever ran, and it was back in the era of kick down the door, kill the monster, take its stuff. Sometimes kick down the door, talk to the NPCs, and then go to the next door. It was in that era of Dungeons and Dragons, which I kind of want to kind of play a little bit of or run a little bit of, just for that, like, low key, no moral quandaries, no big role play moments. The role play moments are characters going, wow, that was a heck of a scrap. Yes, it was. You were pretty good in it. Yes, but not as good as you were. Like, just a little bit of that low key.
Lost City is also one of those that is one of the first D&D modules that had like factions, but they don't really matter. I mean, you either can do something with them or just, like you said, kick in the door, crossbow.
Yep.
I'm
open to other things. I'll check out the Witchlight. I just bought the Undermountain because my Candlekeep group, which we play monthly on Saturdays right now, has expressly asked for a series of adventures where they can kick down the door and kill the monsters. And that's a group of relatively new players. So when I mentioned the Yawning Portal, as they were in Waterdeep, I mentioned, there's the Yawning Portal. And it didn't click until after I said it, and they all kind of went, the what? I was like, let me explain. And they're all like, that sounds awesome. We want to go in the Undermountain. And I'm like,
no, you don't.
Okay, we could do that. And I flirted with it, and all of a sudden a couple people in chat were like, here's money, buy it. I'm like, I guess we're doing it. So as soon as they're done with their current Candlekeep adventure, we're going to switch to a level of Undermountain. And I was all geeked, and I bought it, and I opened it, and I'm like, oh, look, factions, and alliances and NPCs. I'm like, this is not kick down door, kill monsters.
Yeah, and it's 100 plus pages of map of next of next of map of next, mega dungeon.
Yeah.
So
we might just run it as kick down door, kill monsters, because that's what the PCs want for a few sessions. And I don't blame them. I have a monk that's like 7th level. She really wants a chance to just go full Jackie Chan on some stuff. Yeah, she doesn't get a lot of chances to go full Jackie Chan, and I think it's starting to get to her. Because she's read all the rules. She knows everything she can do. She just needs a chance to do that. So that's what I got coming up. So, like I said, I'm thinking about adding a 3rd regular game.
All right.
Well, it's that or I keep playing Medieval Dynasty, which, again, for a survival game, is crazy zen. It's a city management game that you just have to build all the buildings yourself. That's the way I play it. That's how I'm doing it. Nice. I can't just drop a weaver hut. I have to go get all the logs and build the weaver hut and then go find a weaver and ask her to move into it. Because that's the way I play it. You don't have to, but because someone came by like, wow, you have a lot of people in your town. I'm in year 10 and there's like me and my wife. I'm like, it's the way I roll, man. Okay. So as we wind down, any wrap-up thoughts for our podcast friends?
So there is how to put this. Conversations that start with a finger often end with a fist. So if things get heated enough to where you're gonna start pointing a finger at someone, it's probably time to walk away.
And on that note, thank you for downloading the podcast and listening to it. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice. It'll help other people find this show and enjoy it themselves. If you have a minute, please consider stopping by sweetsteam.com, one of the sponsors of the show. You can use the code STEAMNoir over there at sweetsteam.com to take 5% off your order. And I have to tell you, thanks to the supply chain, they don't have a lot of chocolates left. If you want to get some of their goodies, you got to get in there. Or bookmark it for later and get in there when they restock, because these things do not last very long before somebody scoops them up. We're having a character conflict via text message. I believe it. Thank you for listening. If you have thoughts, feel free to hit either of us on the Twitters at Lantern Noir or at Graybeard Tavern. And you're also welcome to send us an email at oldtimertavern@gmail.com. If you agreed with us, if you disagreed with us, if you have a topic suggestion, all of those are welcome. Anywhere you can give them to us, we guarantee we will talk about them next time we sit down. Until that time that we do sit down, as Graybeard said, remember, a finger pointed can lead to a fist thrown. And wherever you are and however you game, stay safe. Okay, so if you're here on Twitch, thanks for hanging out with us. It was fun. It's always good to have an active and engaged chat, even when we forget to do things like put up trigger warnings, because we forgot to do that. I didn't think we were going to, and then we were. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we're doing the thing. Okay. What I think we're going to do to send you on, we have not rated into this guy, but he's a friend of a friend of a friend. I think he's one of Lenarius's mods. And he's playing through, like, I'm looking down my list of friends of who's playing what and doing what. And actually, no, I have a better idea where we're going to go. This is another friend of a friend. And she is playing through Horizon Zero Dawn. It's her first playthrough. She's a new D&Der. Her boyfriend just introduced her to it.
Nice.
And so it'd be kind of fun to go share some love over there. Meanwhile, as you slightly overheard, I have to go feed the little one. because she's starting to feel the hungers.
Mm-hmm.
I play and run dark games, so I have plenty of challenging stories. Yeah, that can happen. And you're always welcome to join us over on the Discord to talk about these things.
Yeah.
We do not. Maybe it's that. Oh, there it goes. It did come through. We don't shy away from those conversations. In the meantime, thanks for coming. Say hello to Gambit when you get there. She's an amazing content creator. You're going to have fun chilling out with her. We will see everybody back here in 2 weeks. We will tell you in 2 weeks minus 15 minutes what we're talking about when we get there. All right, folks. Y'all have a good time. We'll see you next time.